Jaliek Rainwalker, known to friends as Jay, seems to be a perfect example of the saddening, child of the system stereotype, having lived in 6 different foster homes in his early years after being placed into the system when he was born, addicted to crack cocaine. The constant moving and seemingly impossibility of Jaliek finding a permanent home would have had an obvious effect upon the child, leading to, or more likely intensifying, his behavioral problems. He allegedly had violent temper tantrums, which could last up to an hour and would often frighten other children, including his foster siblings. These acts of violence are obvious contributing factors as to why it took Jaliek so long to be adopted, particularly when it is listed that at aged 7, he attacked a foster sibling, the daughter of Jody and Larry Schoen, his penultimate foster parents. At the time of his disappearance, Jaliek was in the care of Stephen Kerr and Jocelyn McDonald, who he had lived with for 5 years alongside their 3 biological sons and an adopted daughter. They had legally adopted Jaliek during this time. The family are noted to have lived an unconventional lifestyle. They had no running water, used outhouses as opposed to toilets, and only had electricity a few hours a day. They also slept in one room. This appears somewhat unusual given that these events occurred during the 2000s, and the family have cited environmental conservation as reasoning behind their lifestyle choices. From what I can gather, the children were also homeschooled. I cannot find information regarding whether or not Jaliek was happy at his foster home, but given that he lived there for 5 years, we can assume, or at least hope, that they were happy together for at least some period of time. However, according to his adoptive parents' statements, Jaliek was suffering from suicidal and homicidal thoughts in the period approaching his 2007 disappearance. Despite their claims, it's that he was not taking any drugs to help manage his conditions, nor was he receiving psychotherapy. Although this does not make their claims unfounded, it does suggest that more could have been done to help him. On October 23, 2007, Kerr, adoptive father, called a crisis hotline and explained that he wanted to reverse the adoption, saying that Jaliek's behavior was out of control and that he had threatened a small child attending their homeschool group. The crisis worker organized respite care for Jaliek, saying that reversing the adoption was not a possibility. Jaliek went to stay with Elaine and Tom Person, who had cared for him in the past. He returned home on the 1st of November, although it is alleged that Kerr had plans to send him to another respite home the next day. It is apparent from this that Kerr did not want Jaliek in his house or around his children any longer. Jaliek went missing during the night on the 1st of November from his paternal grandparents' home. Kerr was supposed to be watching him during this night and states that he woke up at 7:30 a.m. to find a note, allegedly written by Jaliek. The note read, "Dear everybody, I'm sorry for everything. I won't be a bother anymore. Goodbye, Jaliek." This note seems to perpetuate an idea that Jaliek had intentionally gone missing. He had either run away or perhaps more sinisterly was intending on committing suicide, which of course, aligns with the belief that Jaliek was suicidal. Perhaps he was feeling disheartened by being passed around so often or upset about some unknown factor and saw suicide as a release. The McDonalds lived in a rural area, and although it was searched extensively, it could be that they simply failed to find Jaliek's body. However, the Persons do not believe that the note was left by Jaliek as a goodbye, but rather a letter he had been assigned by Kerr to write as a homework assignment, perhaps to apologize for his recent bad behavior. This makes Kerr's alleged discovery of the note somewhat sinister. If it were a homework assignment, why would he present it to be a clue in the disappearance of his child? In January of 2008, Kerr was listed as POI in his son's disappearance due to inconsistencies in his story. Video surveillance footage of Kerr driving his van in Greenwich after midnight on the night of Jaliek's disappearance, at a time which he claimed to be in bed asleep. Cellular phone records also indicate that he took a different route to his house than usual on the November 1st. To many it appears obvious that Kerr is deeply involved in the disappearance of the child, and it is disheartening that no convictions have been made in the case as of now, although I believe the case is still open. Jocelyn, foster mom, passed a polygraph and Kerr denied to take one, although this is not really an admission of guilt as they can be unreliable. They have since moved to West Rupert, Vermont, originally living in Greenwich, New York. The pair protest their innocence and state that they subscribe to the theory that Jaliek ran away or joined a gang. The case takes another potential turn in late January of 2008, when a letter arrived at their Greenwich home, which read, "Jaliek is still alive, needed a foot solider for this war on drugs, picked him up RT40 post 30, he's okay, no fake, he says, ask his mama and papa who are the macaroni family, my cat named Diamond." Why does Franti yell fire? Don't try to look, we are not there. Jaliek did own a cat named Diamond, but any other allusions/references made in the letter are unclear or have not been released to the public.